And welcome back to another podcast episode. This is going to be a bit different because it's one business talk with Caesar from Symphony Advertising, and then two, this is also an introduction to a new series that I want to do, which is called Local SEO Growth, where I document the process of me ranking another business on the first page of Google. Now, for this particular business, this particular case study, I'm going to do a mobile mechanic here in Houston. And you're going to see me document the process from getting their websites, doing the keyword research, optimizing pages, and then hopefully tracking and seeing them get on the first page of Google. Now, on the podcast, it's going to be more high-level overview of what I'm doing on the daily, weekly, monthly basis, because I can't create a podcast for every single thing that I do. But inside the course SEO for detailers, that's where I'm going to show you more behind the scenes, like nitty gritty. This is the keyword research. This is the on-page optimization. Here's what I'm actually doing on the website. So the podcast is just to give you an overview of how I'm progressing over the next few months. And then inside the course, you'll actually see me do all the actual work. And this Friday, the 17th, I will be opening up enrollments into my online marketing course, SEO for Detailers. That's where I help you rank your website on the first page of Google. So if you're interested on that, you can check the show notes, or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can check the description box down below, and you can click on the link and sign up for the waiting list as it'll open up this Friday. So anyways, I have Caesar here because he is the expert on Google Ads, and I'm the expert, so to speak, on local SEO. So what I want to do here to give you guys a different perspective on how you should look at growing a business is I'm going to cover what I would do and how I would do it with the SEO, with search engine optimization, and then I'll pass it on to Caesar, and he's going to explain to you what he would do on the Google Ads side, as far as what he would do to grow a local mechanic shop here in Houston with Google Ads. So, Caesar, are you ready?
I'm ready to go.
Okay, so I'm actually going to start off with you. Okay, so it's not a hypothetical. It's an actual thing that I'm doing. Okay. So we have a mobile mechanic, right? Houston-based
mobile mechanic.
Yeah, so they don't have a shop. They go to the customer's location within a 20-mile radius of their home location.
Okay.
If the customer agrees, let's say it's a lengthier project, right? Whatever it may be, it's a lengthier project. If the customer is willing to drop it off at their home location to get their work done there, he'll do that too. But for the most part, it's a mobile mechanic. Based on the questionnaire that I sent out, the main services that he's projecting to have is AC repair, brake repair, and your tune-ups, which is changing the spark plugs, oil change, and all that. So on your side, right? So on your side, what is the goal with, so you do. So explain real quick what Google Ads is to the audience here.
So whenever you go to google.com and you go look for a problem like brake repair near me, when you hit enter, there's a couple of spots that are Google Ads, meaning somebody paid for that placement. That's a simple concept as it is. Somebody puts we choose what keywords you'll come up for. So if it's a mobile mechanic near me, we put the ad there so that the chance of you getting a call for that service happens.
Right, and there's a difference between there's three things to look for on the first page of Google, right? So you have your ad placement, which is through Google Ads, which would be a Caesar thing. Then you have two different spots on SEO, search engine optimization, which would be like a me thing, because there's actually, now that I think about it, there's 4 spots.
There's a lot.
No, yeah, but as far as like you have the first like 2 or 3 ad results are usually an ad. Then you go to your local 3-pack, which is organic, but sometimes
it's an ad. Yeah.
There's an ad placement on the first result, and then from there you go to your organic, which is the 10 links, and then from there at the very bottom there might be an additional 1 or 2 ads.
And then some industries have local service ads, which are the Google guaranteed ones,
right?
That go even above.
So that would be mostly like your contracts, like your HVAC,
plumbers, roofing, some lawyers. It depends on the industry, but those, depending on the industry, apply as well.
So with both Google Ads or SEO, the name of the game is get on the first page of Google, right? For specific keywords that your customers are searching you for. Correct?
That's the goal.
Yeah. It's the same for both. Now, on the SEO side, the way I would find those keywords that people are searching for is through a Google Ads specific tool called the Keyword Planner.
Yep.
Now, can you just break down what the Keyword Planner is? Because it is a Google Ad specific tool inside the ad inside the Google Ads platform, but it's also used heavily for SEOs to find keyword research. So what's
Correct. So back then, whenever back then was, anybody could use it. You sign up for a Google Ads account, you could just go and use it without ever spending any money. But as of the last couple of years, you actually have to spend money in order to get access to that tool. And so a general explanation is you go to the keyword planning tool and you put inputs. So like, I want to know if I look up mobile mechanic near me, what is the search term value? About roughly how much would it cost and in what area? So they're estimates. It'll let you know there's 200 searches per month. It costs about $3 per click. And that's about all the general information you get. But the idea is to brainstorm, to your point, is you go there to find out what is the keyword, what are the keywords that people are looking for. And that's just one of the ways you can do it. So the keyword plan in tandem with going to Google and just being the mobile mechanic, being whatever business you are, you should have a general idea of what it is people would be looking for to find you. So you build a list, you add them to the keyword planner, and then you get some idea of what you want to target, how many impressions you'd get, and what the cost would be from an ad side. And for the SEO side, you get an idea of like, okay, this one gets 400 impressions per month, where this one gets 0. So obviously you would go with one that has more traffic.
Yeah, so on that one, so yeah, like as you said, it wasn't until about 2 or 3 years ago that Google, which at the time was Google AdWords, and they changed their name again to Google Ads, is that they started to, if you want the actual specific data of the volume of searches per month, and everything else, actually, you do have to actually run ads. And I know at the time, even now, a lot of SEOers, like SEO experts, search engine optimizers, they're very upset and mad at that because, like, for so many years, anyone was able to access that data, and now the only way you're able to access that data is by running ads. Now, I'm not sure how much you're supposed. Like, what's the lowest campaign you've ever ran? And so actually, you wouldn't know that because you're running it through your advertiser account.
No,
but you don't know. You don't. Do you know?
Yeah. So sometimes I use other. Actually, nowadays we prefer clients to set up their own account because it gets confusing. But so there is no limit. Like, you could say, I want to spend $5 a day and say that's the lowest. But what happens now is, which is new, like fairly new, is that when you create the campaign and if it doesn't hit whatever will guarantee impressions, it won't publish it. So like most of the time, the minimum is $20. Most of the time it'll say, hey, you're not going to get any impressions with $10 a day. Make it 20. You could still publish it, but you get a giant red flag that says, hey, you're not going to get any impressions. But you do. They're all estimates. Just when you do run it, it ends up happening. But to your point, I don't know what
the actual.
Does it have to be $100?
Yeah.
Does it have to be $50? I think once you publish the campaign, it should let you use it.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be able to tell you the exact amount, but yeah, so for most people that are watching this and people that go through the SEO for Detailers course, they don't have the exact data because they're not running ads. There's other tools out there that can generate data, but those softwares will also have you to pay for that as well because it's data is valuable, right? As everyone sees. So if you want the actual numbers of what you're using, you have to either pay for it through the Google Ads and run an ad campaign, or pay for the software, which gives you access. Now, to his point, again, everything is estimates. So if I go to the keyword planner and I look at, Houston mobile mechanic Houston, and I see that it says, I haven't checked the numbers yet, so don't quote me on this, but if it's like, 200 searches per month or 400 searches per month, I'm not looking at that as exact volume. It's just a general idea of what that is. So, it might not be exactly 200 searches and it might not be exactly 400 searches, but I can know for sure that this keyword gets twice as many searches than that keyword, even if it's not exactly 200 or 400. So it might be off 10, 15% up or down. So it's more just as a guide to let you know what keywords get some type of volume. Now, a big portion of anything local business is location is very, 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 very important. So if you are in a small town of, 15,000 people That's different than being in a city of 2.4 million people. The opportunity, the volume, the cost, the competition, it's a big factor in how you're going to prioritize what keywords and how you attack that game plan. So on the SEO side, if you are in an area, right? So Houston is a 2. Okay, there's 2.2 million people, great area, a lot of opportunity, endless amount of opportunity actually. If you go to Spring, Texas, which I think there's 50,000 people in there, which is like from right here, like I'm in Houston, like where we are in this exact moment is considered Houston. Spring is maybe 15 minutes away, but Spring, Texas has 50,000 people. Houston has 2.2, 2.4 million people. So it's always best, if possible, not possible because it just depending where you live, that's your constraint, but like it's always helpful to be in a more populated area because there is more people searching just by default. The law of numbers, if there's more people there, more things happen versus if you're not. So on the SEO side, it's paramount that like where you are is actually getting volume, meaning searches per month, because it will heavily dictate basically the opportunity that you get. It's a bit different with ads because if you are in Spring, you can pay for Google to show your ads in Houston or the Woodlands or Conroe. So how would you break that down? If the mobile mechanic is in an area, let's say that there's 20,000 people in there, and there's another city, let's say Houston, that's 2.2 million, or whatever. Like how do you break that down in that strategy?
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest advantage of using something like Google Ads, which is why it's great to use both things, right? You can be local and you can kind of reach further than what your local marketing does. Is at that point, it's like, hey, Mr. Mobile Mechanic guy, how far are you willing to drive to do these jobs? What radius would you consider your territory and that you would feel comfortable driving to, right? So like, if it's somebody just starting off, or if it's a business that's really open to, hey, we don't care. If we have to drive 45 minutes one way to get business, we'll do it. We want the business. We don't mind driving. If it's that thing, then we'll stretch it. We'll start with a much broader area. So we could say, hey, your location is, let's just say right here. We'll set a 40-mile radius, which is pretty big. Like, that's actually kind of ridiculous. And so to your point, now you're not just in Spring, you're in Spring, Houston, and whatever other areas you overlap, but you can choose that on Google Ads. So you say, hey, I don't care. Like, as long as it's within the 40-mile radius, I want my ad to pop up. Some caveats is that the more area you take, the more, because there's more opportunity, the more money that we'll spend. So if there's only 10,000 people in the area you're targeting, odds are you're not going to spend it as fast. But then when there's a million people, there's going to be that much more people searching. So your budget starts to take a little bit more of a acceleration hit. Hopefully, right? Like you want there to be spend. If there's no spend, then there's no opportunity. So,
yeah, and that's important to note, and kind of tying it back to the difference. Like the keyword planner is made for ads, and like it's not made for SEO. So like I had a student that said like, hey, if in my area I'm not getting that much search volume, but if I target these areas with my SEO, I'll get more traffic. And it's like, well, the only reason you're able to see that is because that's assuming you're running ads. So when you're paying to run ads, you can put it literally in any zip code that you like. So you can get very, very granular. But with SEO, you don't have that benefit. To whereas if you are in, Magnolia and you're not mobile, you can't rank for any other cities in your area if you're not servicing those areas, because that's against the Google guidelines. Like you have to be, if you are just a home garage or shop base and you're in Magnolia, you can't go target Houston and the Woodlands and Sugarland and Katy, and because you don't go to those areas. So that's the biggest benefit with mobile, is that you can go to different areas. So with this Houston mechanic, since he is mobile, assuming he's willing to drive, right? Because especially on the client side, if in the area that they're in only has 20,000 people, and they don't want to travel that far, but they want more customers, it's like, my guy, like it's one or the other. Like if you want more customers, you got to go out of that service area, because there's not much opportunity there. But so depending on how far you want to drive as a mobile, whatever, at this one, mobile mechanic, it really does open up the possibility of getting a bigger footprint out there, because you're able to target more areas. So if this mechanic lives in, let's say, Magnolia, but they are mobile and they are willing to drive to let's say 40 miles, then with that I can go and I know I can broaden my keywords, and I can start looking at Houston keywords, at Sugarland keywords, at Katy keywords, at Conroe keywords, at, if he's willing to go that far, Huntsville keywords. Like if they're willing to drive that far, you can now expand your footprint locally or on the internet locally though, to get broader keywords. And now to your point, if you want to talk on this, is that if there's more search volume, if you go to an area with more population, by default there'll be more search volume, right? So you will spend more and get more data, like clicks and such.
Yes.
And when you broaden things, when you go broader, right? And like let's say we start targeting all these different areas, the byproduct of that is that you do get less quality leads, or no?
That goes into how you set up the campaign. So you can make it such that you have it broad keywords where anything loosely related to your search term, mobile mechanic near me, or you can make it super exact. So only come up with if specifically mobile mechanic near me and nothing that's close to that. But I will say if you're starting, not just starting a business, but like if you're starting on Google Ads, it is better to be more broad. Like if you don't know, then you're not gonna find out unless you go broad and you see what comes in. So like you might find out like, hey, actually people don't use mobile mechanic, they use butler services for car. And then you're like, oh, I didn't know that. Like I didn't know that's what was being searched for. Highly doubt that's what it is.
Yeah.
But as an example, there are other words that are close to it that you can find out by running a broad campaign. So I do recommend broadening it up, which in turn means in the beginning you're gonna start off with lower quality. Not
you can say that. Yeah.
The amount is gonna be lower quality. You're still gonna get good quality within it, but you might go through 50 strokes of bad for one stroke of good, or that's a pretty bad ratio. But it might be something like that.
Yeah. So what you're saying is to give that. So it's like and that's why it's like over time, like even with SEO, things get better over time, because like now on the SEO side, like you're not gonna know. You can go into the keyword planner, you can look at it, but you're not gonna know what every keyword, like what type of results it's gonna bring. As far as, yes, you can get on the first page, but then you don't know the type of people that are calling, that are searching for that keyword, that are then giving you a call, right? Like I really wouldn't recommend anyone rank for a car wash anything, like as a detailer, because that's a very, very generic keyword, and that like just about any place I've ever looked at. If you look at car wash Los Angeles, car wash, like wherever, car wash Houston, car wash San Antonio, car wash Austin, car whatever, that's typically the biggest keyword that gets the most volume. But that's typically the one that has a very high rates of low quality leads, because that's typically like, oh, I just want like a $10 wash, a quick in and out. And if you're not the type of detailer that offers that service, then that's a big disconnect.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
So in the vice versa, for the mobile mechanic near me keyword, that is going to be the high volume keyword. But let's say the business itself only wants to do like nice cars, then they shouldn't target mobile mechanic near me. You wouldn't know this until you go through that process. You'd have to do something like luxury mobile mechanic near me, or high end mobile mechanic near me, because that potential customer is looking for somebody like, not just in and out guy. They're looking for a quality person to work on their nice car. So that's things that you find out when you're like, oh, I keep getting calls, but they're not for me. Then you got to tweak it to be like, okay, I'm letting the ones I want in,
Yeah, no, and that's just so another way that I would do that too is with this one, because with the automotive space, there's so many makes, models, and things. Like, one, it's really understanding what service and what type of, like, because with mobile mechanics, with mechanics, there's a different lot of certifications and such. So I would really like to understand the type of credentials or things that he has. Like maybe he has like a Toyota dealership, a Nissan certification, whatever. And maybe he's like, hey man, like I really want to go to like, I really just like to work on European cars. So one thing that I would really look at is saying, okay, are there keywords that I could look for that are saying, hey, BMW mechanic Houston, Volkswagen mechanic Houston, right? And although those keywords might have low search volume, it is a very, very specific keyword that can, although it's low search volume, right? So low traffic, but the intent is super high. So doing a someone searching for Houston mechanic or Houston mobile mechanic versus BMW mobile mechanic, it is very specific.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing that I would really look on. Now, the contrast between Google Ads and SEO is that with SEO, it takes time, takes a lot of effort, and you don't see the results until 3, 6, 9 months down the road. But you can target, right? So if let's say the mobile mechanic wants to specifically target European cars, right? So I would say European. If I find this in the keyword planner, I'd say European mobile mechanic Houston, BMW mobile mechanic Houston, right? Audi mobile mechanic. I would look at all those keywords and see if those are I should take action on. Now you can do the same thing with ads, but how does that affect the ad strategy? Does that dilute the if they, because one, it's heavily dictated on the ad spend per day. So if they have,
I was gonna say,
if they have $10 a day per day, and there's but I could do BMW and Audi and Volkswagen and whatever, it's like where's the right strategy between it? Because on the SEO side, it's your time and energy over 3, 6, 9 months. But with ads, although you can still target those exact same keywords, you are heavily dictated by your ad spend.
Unfortunately, it's like one of those things that it's so dependent on your budget. Because if you have even, let's say, $20 a day, which is decent, right, to start off with, there's not enough budget to spread it out across so many different keywords. Which, if you get in granular, there's campaigns, there's ad groups, there's keywords. If you're just getting started off, you want to start off with just one campaign, and you want to keep that first campaign pretty general. That's what we use. And by general, again, for starting off, I would say mobile mechanic and whatever is the main thing you're looking for. You might not even know that. So if it's just foreign, instead of saying Beamer,
Volkswagen,
all that, then you go with foreign. If it's all domestic, go with domestic. If it's all just mobile mechanic, you keep it at the same category, because if you have like $100 a day, okay, we can go more granular. Toyota, make all the different categories of service that you can service. But yeah, the reason it wouldn't work is because the advantage of Google Ads is it's fast. But if you're going to spread all your budget across all these different keywords, then you might as well just do SEO, because by the time you get the data for your campaign, it's going to be months, because you're going to get one click for each campaign, like, a couple a week.
Yeah, so with that one, I would heavily look at, like, for the SEO side, I would nuke it like with SEO, because what I would do, and it's a lot more cumbersome, it's a lot more work, but you can get a lot granular without being constrained by a budget, just your time and energy. Of like, I would go as far as say, on the next episode on the podcast, I'll recap how I did the keyword research. But it would be like, BMW, like I would create a page and rank it for let's not even Europe. I would say, like, if they just can do everything, right? BMW Houston mechanic, Audi Houston mechanic, Volkswagen Houston mechanic, Toyota Houston mechanic, Honda Houston mechanic. Like, for every single make, I would create a page for that. And you can get even granular than that, assuming that it makes sense, to where you can say, Toyota brake repair Houston mechanic, Audi brake Houston mechanic, Volkswagen brakes Houston mechanic. If it makes sense, I'm not saying it does make sense. I'm just saying, like, that's how it's a lot. That's a lot of pages. It's the same thing for SEO, because that'd be like a lot of keywords that you're now ranking, a lot of maybe landing pages, maybe the headline that you have to write. So it does get granular. Now, one thing that I hear, which it's not a bad strategy, because this is a strategy that I did for our detailing business, to where I capitalized the absolute most on SEO. I ranked as many pages as I can. And then on top of that, I stacked Google Ads, right? So now we have Google Ads, we have SEO, and we have a lot of, we're on the first page for a lot of keywords. Now, for those that are listening to this podcast, we'll wrap it up here shortly, because we have 5 minutes left. As you can see, like, we're talking pretty granular. Actually, not even that granular. This is pretty high level overview. But when people ask, hey, like as I do my SEO, should I be running Google Ads? And it's like those are both disciplines you have to learn. And as if you're completely lost of what we're talking about right now, you have to go and understand everything that we're talking about in order to make sure you're not wasting money. So with you, if a client says like, or like, what's the advice you would give someone that's like, hey, I want to learn Google Ads, like, is it something that they can pick up faster than what you think SEO would be, and they can like learn pretty quick to where if they're trying to do SEO on the side, would Google Ads be like a whole other plate to handle, or it's like they could probably handle both?
I mean, those are pretty tough. I would say both are pretty tough. It obviously depends on the person, like how are they quick learners? But like in comparison to SEO, I would say SEO is a little bit harder than PPC or Google Ads, because Google Ads is kind of like A plus B equals C, or 1 plus 2 equals 3, kind of. SEO, from my experience, is more like 1 plus square equals orange.
Yeah.
Equals lead. It's a little bit
Yeah.
a longer path, so it's hard to connect what dots are connected to what dots.
That's true.
You just know at some point you start getting leads.
Yeah. Now, but on that note though, it's definitely not a walk in the park to be like, oh, let me just go do Google Ads real quick as I'm doing SEO. Like those are two disciplines that you should 100%. Like that's basically saying, oh well, I'm gonna learn how to be like, as I learn how to, I don't know, as I learn how to, I'm trying to relate this, but like, as I learn how to play point guard, oh, let me learn how to be a center as well. It's like, well, it's like those are two disciplines entirely that require its own type of information, its own set of skills, its own set of everything's like. So, it's like, not that it's bad. Like, again, like there's a time and place for all strategies. Again, like we ranked for multiple pages on the first page of Google organically. And then I stacked Google Ads, which is great because now you're just dominating the first page. But I would definitely kind of pick, and I would do like an 80-20, like 80% one thing and 20% the other thing, because it's a discipline. Like
it's not even possible, I don't think. Like you should know the concepts to all these things very well, but it's a task.
Yeah. Okay. So we're about to hit our 30-minute mark. So I'm gonna close out right here. Again, this is the first series in the local SEO growth, but I brought Caesar on here to talk on the ad side. He'll be on more business talks in the future as well. So again, if you want to enroll into SEO for Detailers online course, that's gonna open up this Friday the 17th. You can check the show notes, or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can check the description box down below and sign up for the waiting list. And if you want to check any other links, I'll have everything down below. Thank you, Caesar. Thank you very much, and I will talk to everyone on the next one. Bye-bye.